Hello everybody, good afternoon. I hope all of you physically healthy, importantly, mentally very happy. Because, so many years, so we have been studying Buddhism, as well we have been practicing Buddhism. Therefore, there's not such as, guarantee we all physically be healthy. As a Buddhist practitioner, as a Buddhist follower, we must have a kind of guarantee to have the healthy mind, mentally be healthy. The main point for practicing Buddhism is to generate healthy mind, to reduce the unhealthy mind. The more you generate healthy mind, the more decrease the unhealthy mind. The mind is healthy or unhealthy, it is in our hand. The body is healthy or unhealthy, 50% is in our hand. The 50% is out of our control. There's no such as we can have, guarantee to have healthy body. Therefore, in our daily life, it is very important to use or to apply the Dharma for generate, establish healthy mind, control, decrease, eliminate the negative minds. Then we can have healthy mind, very healthy mind, the perfect healthy mind. These are very important. In order to have healthy, very healthy, perfect healthy mind, it depends on our daily practice. Therefore, please, try to practice the Dharma as much as you can. Sometimes you can practice a bit longer. Sometimes you can practice a bit shorter because of you are like a timing. Sometimes you are busy. Sometimes you are not so busy. So according to your time, so you must practice Dharma. At the beginning, so we do the short revision, what we discussed in the past. The actual body of the treatise, right? First there's a salutation, then the actual body of the treatise, the actual body of the root text. At the beginning, there are two parts. What are they? The causal, this is the twofold, the causal grounds and the resultant grounds. Then all the contents of the actual treatise, so we can divide into two. The causal ground, which is from first Bhumi to all the way to 10th Bhumis. We name the causal ground. Those are the actual cause to reach to the enlightened state. Then when we become a Buddha, then that state we name the resultant grounds. First, there's a two folds, causal grounds and the resultant grounds. Then when Chandrakirti explained the causal grounds, then there are three paths. How to practice the path according to this system in general. Therefore, at the beginning, Lama Tsongkhapa explained how to practice the path according to the Pasangika school, according to Nagarjuna tradition, according to Chandrakirti tradition. That means this is kind of whole picture of the path, how to practice according to the Pasangika school. At the beginning, first we need to generate bodhicitta. Generating bodhicitta is depend on generating great compassion. Then great compassion can be generated three different ways. Right? After generated bodhicitta, then we need to adopt, or we need to take the commitments or the vows. First, we must have a very strong aspiration to be Buddha, to benefit all sentient beings. Then the commitment means, since today, I will practice the bodhicitta with the 6 perfections. Then in your daily life, you can practice bodhicitta with the 6 perfections and 6 perfection with the bodhicitta. This is the how to practice the path according to this system, mean Pasangika. It's quite simple way you can think. In the Buddhist teaching, there are only 2 paths. One, the path how to achieve only liberation to benefit benefit themselves. Then this we name, the Hinayan path. The second path is the path to achieve Buddhahood, to benefit all sentient beings. Then this we name the Mahayana path. So Mahayana path, there's a different tradition. One according to the Pasangika, one is rest of the other Buddhist school. So we follow Nagarjuna tradition, Chandrakirti, and Shantideva. Therefore, at the beginning, how to practice the path according to this system in general. So explain, right? Then second, the practice on the ordinary person stage in particular. First, how to practice the Mahayana path according to Pasangika school. Second, how to practice the 3 ordinary path, which is great compassion, bodhicitta, then the emptiness. Right? These 3 we name the ordinary person stage. Then the third one, presenting the ground of the Araha Bodhisattva. So we are ordinary person, very, very ordinary. So as an ordinary person, first we need to practice the 3 stages or 3 paths, which is bodhicitta, great compassion, bodhicitta, and the wisdom which realizes emptiness. So let's say, emptiness is bit difficult to understand. But if we try practicing bodhicitta, we can practice, be able to practice. Therefore, we must practice bodhicitta based on exchanging self and other, based on the 7 cause and effect. Right? Therefore, it is so important. We must, start to we must start practicing bodhicitta or daily life. Then one day, definitely, we can accomplish the bodhicitta based on great compassion. The second, then we need to focus on how to realize emptiness, or we can think about how to realize emptiness before generate bodhicitta. It depends on you. There's not such as say, you must practice bodhicitta, the second practice the wisdom. Also, we cannot say, first you must practice the wisdom, realize emptiness. The second, you can practice bodhicitta. Is up to you. That's ordinary. Then practicing bodhicitta with the emptiness, wisdom, the wisdom practice with the bodhicitta, then the practitioner, first part to second part, like the preparation. Then ending of the preparation, then the person can accomplish the seeing part. Seeing part. Then the seeing part, since the seeing part that we name the arhat. If the practitioner is practicing bodhicitta, when he or she reach to the seeing part that we name arha bodhisattva. The practitioner practice emptiness, the wisdom realize emptiness with the renunciation. When the practitioner reach to the seeing part, that we can name, arhat hinaya, your hinayan arhat, or second one we call mahayan arhat, bodhisattva arhat. Okay? Therefore, the third one, the arhat bodhisattva, presenting the grounds of the arhat bodhisattva. Then, when Chandrakirti explained the arhat bodhisattva ground, it has three parts. This third outline has 3 parts. Presenting the 10 ground collectively, mean all 10 ground explained collectively together in a short time, short sentence. The second is presenting the individual grounds. Then presenting the quality of the 10 grounds. Right? Therefore, first bhumi to all the way to the 10 bhumi, Chandrakirti explained first collectively the 10 grounds. Second, he explained the 10 grounds individually. First ground, second, third, every grounds. Then at the end, when he explained the Arya Bodhisattva path, at the end, Chandrakirti explained the qualities of the 10 grounds. First, collectively present the 10 grounds. Second, explain or presenting the ground individually. At the end, presenting the quality of the 10 grounds. Right? Now we study about the individual. That means there are 10 bhumis or 10 grounds. Here you must remember all the time that 10 bhumis the 10 grounds we differentiate based on the ultimate bodhicitta. Within the ultimate bodhicitta, then that ultimate bodhicitta divide into 10 different levels. That first bhumi is also ultimate bodhicitta, second bhumi also ultimate, third, all the 10 bhumis are differentiate, established based on ultimate bodhicitta. Therefore, remember, divide it into 10. The ultimate bodhicitta divide into 10. Then there's a doubt or there's a question. So, first bhumi, second bhumi, third bhumi, how we can differentiate? Because all of them are ultimate bodhicitta. Then remember, each of the bhumi has a 4 distinct qualities. First bhumi has their own 4 distinctive qualities. The second bhumi has their own distinct 4 qualities. This one you remember, yes, all of them ultimate bodhicitta, but still we can differentiate based on the 4 unique or distinct, distinctive features. This is general presentation. Now, individual 10 bhumis. The 10 bhumis, first he explained the 5 bhumis. Then he explained particularly the 6 bhumi, then 7 to 10. That means first 5, second particular the 6 bhumi, then later the 4 bhumi. That means the bhumi they divide into 3 parts. Therefore, this has 3 parts, explaining the first 5 grounds, explaining the sixth ground, which is manifest, then explaining the remaining 4 grounds. Please remember the 10 ground, first 5, then particularly the 6th. After 6th, the 7, 8, 9, 10 explain quite shortly. That means there's first 3. Then what are the first 5 grounds? That means the first ground, which is namely perfect joy. Second bhumi, the second ground, namely stinless. Then third ground is the luminous. The 4th ground is radiant. The 5th ground is the heart to concourse. Remember the name, 5 name of the 5 bhumis. Among the 5, now we do revision for the first bhumi, which is joy, perfect joy. It has at the beginning, it has 3 parts. Brief definition of the grounds, the brief definition of the first bhumi. Then extensive presentation of the quality, the attributes of the first bhumi. And at the end, the conclusion, starting the quality of the ground. So it is same, when you study the second bhumi, at the beginning, brief definition of the first bhumi, then extensive presentation of the first bhumi, at the end, the conclusion. Second bhumi was at the same time. At the beginning, brief definition of the second Bhumi, then extensive explanation and conclusion. Remember this. Now, so remember what is the root, stanza about the brief definition of the ground. Therefore, the Bodhisattva's mind falls under the compassion's survey, yearning to set free every transmigrating beings through intense dedication with the Samanta Bhatra's prayers. He abides in the perfect joy. This is called the first ground. This stanza is stanza about brief definition of the first Bhumi. This means very simple with the first line. The Bodhisattva's mind falls under compassion survey, yearning to set free every transmigrating beings. Mean he becomes very compassionate, full of compassion. For him or her, always wish how I can free all sentient beings from suffering. This is the only mind he or she has. Therefore, he or she does a lot of prayers, a lot of dedication, billions of dedications. For example, when the Bodhisattva sees sick person who are sick, he dedicate, wish I can manifest medicine for them. When he sees hungry person, he dedicate, all my merits for myself, manifest as a food for them. Therefore, they did millions of dedication. All the dedication, all the aspirational prayers actually, encompass the Samanta Bhattara prayers. Particularly, I send you the link there. There's two stanza. This is the brief definition of the first Bhumi. Then extensive presentation of the qualities. So when he or she reach to the first Bhumi, he or she possess, two kinds of qualities. What are they? This has three parts. The qualities that beautifying the Bodhisattva's own mental continuum. The qualities that outshine others' mental continuum. The quality that comes to be superior on the first ground. That means first quality is, quality themselves to be, beautifying. Second, particular quality to outshine others. Therefore, the quality that beautifying the Bodhisattva's own mental continuum has 8 qualities. 8 qualities. Altogether, there are 8 qualities which is beautifying their own mental continuum. The root text. The first. So now we go one by one. The first quality of obtaining a meaningful title. That when he or she reach to the first Bhumi, then he or she are described or named ultimate bodhicitta. The quality of obtaining the meaningful title. Then the root text, from that point on, having attained this ground, he is held by the name Bodhisattva alone. Right? Therefore, he directly perceived emptiness since the Bodhisattva became ultimate Bodhisattva. But we don't have conventional Bodhisattva. You should not think, oh, below them can be conventional Bodhisattva. No, we don't have this kind of concept. But we have the concept of ultimate Bodhisattva. Since first Bhumi, he or she held by the name of Bodhisattva, mean ultimate Bodhisattva. Why? From that point on, the Bodhisattva have entered the first ground, has attained the ultimate awakening mind. At this time, when he has transcended the stage of ordinary person, he is held by name ultimate Bodhisattva alone. First, he or she accomplish the ultimate bodhicitta. Therefore, since him or her became ultimate bodhisattva. Second, since first Bhumi, he or she transcended from the ordinary stage, ordinary person. That means ordinary person means below the seeing path. Transcendent person means above the seeing path. So we are included into ordinary person. Ordinary person can be two categories. One already entered into the path. One haven't entered into the path. So we are ordinary person, but we haven't entered into the path. Neither Mahayana path nor Hinayan path. So how we distinguish, oh, this person entered into the path, this person haven't. So there's only two paths, Hinayan path and Mahayana. If you have a pure renunciation without bodhicitta means you are already enter into Hinayan path. If you have bodhicitta with the renunciation, when you fully generated bodhicitta, then means you are entered into Mahayana path. You become son of the Buddha. You become Bodhisattva. Right? Therefore, enter into the Arhat path. That means ordinary person can be two types. Enter into the path, haven't entered into the path. Enter into the path or not enter the path, pure renunciation, no bodhicitta, means the person entered into Hinayan path. Based on renunciation, if the person completely generated bodhicitta, that means the person entered into Mahayana path. The second reason here, he held by when he has transcended the stage of the ordinary person. Transcended means you can say we can say promote. At first ordinary person, because only practice bodhicitta, haven't realized emptiness directly. Since emptiness perceived directly, that the person became transcended person. That means transcended person, Arya, is synonymous. Transcended being, Arya, are synonymous. Right? Therefore, when you hear the Arya, you must think, oh, this person must be already entered into the seeing, meditation, no more learning path. Doesn't matter, it's a Mahayana practitioner, Hinayan practitioner, realize emptiness by direct perception, the person is Arya. Arya, okay, not Arhato, Arya, transcended. Therefore, a person became ultimate Bodhisattva since he or she held by the name of ultimate Bodhicitta. This is one qualities. Then next, there's 4 other qualities. The root text. He is born into the lineage of the Tathagata as well. This is one qualities, right? Then second, he has utterly approached the 3 bonding factors. This is the another qualities. Such as Bodhisattvas uphold the state of the supreme joy. This is another qualities. And he has the power to shake 100 walls. That means here there are 4 qualities. Plus, obtaining the title of ultimate Bodhicitta. That means already there are 5 qualities. What is the first quality? Held by the name of the ultimate Bodhisattva. A second quality is born into the lineage of Tathagata. Then quality number 3, he has utterly approached the 3 bonding factor. Then quality number 4, the fourth, such as Bodhisattva uphold the state of supreme joy. Then quality number 5 or 5th, has the power to shake the 100 walls. That means already there are 5 qualities, right? 4 and 5. Now there's more qualities. Now each has a reasoning. Since first Bhumi, he or she became the lineage of the Tathagata. Lineage of the Tathagata, you can say he is born into lineage of the Tathagata, mean, son of the Tathagata as well. So why again? Why before the first Bhumi, before the grown, he or she haven't become the lineage of the Tathagata? Since first Bhumi, he or she became the lineage of the Tathagata. Why? Then here, furthermore, the Bodhisattva who abide on the first grown, because he has gone well beyond the all grown of unordinary person. Yes? He has gone well beyond all the groans of the unordinary person, as well as those of Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha, and because the path that is the certain to lead to the grown of Buddhahood has arisen within the mental continuum, is born into the lineage of the Tathagata as well. First, he go beyond from the ordinary stage. Second, since reached to the first grown, that means he actually entered into the path to be Buddha, until the first grown. Still there's a dangers to fall into the Hinayan path. Since the first grown, he or she never goes onto the Hinayana path. He or she definitely will become a Buddha. Therefore, became born into the lineage of the Tathagata. There's a two reasons, right? First reason, he or she go beyond the ordinary person. Also, he or she go beyond the Sarvaka and Pradika Buddha. Second reason, he or she, the path that is certain, certain, 100% sure to lead to the ground of the Buddhahood has arisen. Since first Bhumi is 100% sure he or she will become Buddha, never goes into Hinayana, fall into Hinayana path. Therefore, born into the lineage of the Tathagata. Then the third quality, he has utterly approached the three bonding factors, because he or she directly perceive the emptiness. Therefore, he or she eliminated the three bonding factors. Then the fourth one, such as Bodhisattva uphold the state of the supreme joy. Then the power of Shek 100 volts. This means totally there are 5. Now we have another 3. The 3 qualities, such as stepping on the higher ground. That means again the root text here. Stepping on from one ground to another. He travels perfectly to the highest one. At that point, the path to all lower realms are blocked for him. At that point, all the grounds of ordinary person cease from him. That means there are another 3 qualities, totally 8 qualities of the beautifying their Bodhisattva own mental continuum. That means totally 8. What are the last 3 qualities? Stepping on from one ground to other. The next one, at that point, the path to all lower realms are blocked. Since the first ground, they never ever will be born into lower realms due to the karma, due to afflictive emotion. Still he or she can born into lower realm due to aspiration with a proper intention. The last one, at that point, all the groans of ordinary person cease for him. That means they are totally 8 qualities. 8 qualities for beautify the Bodhisattva own. Right? The next, now please remember there are totally 8 qualities for beautify the Bodhisattva own mental continuum. Then the second quality, the quality that outshine other mental continuum. So now today we study more about this one. The quality that outshine other mental continuum. This has three parts. How on this ground, this means the first ground, how on this ground Sarvakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are outshone by the means of the Bodhisattva's lineage. How on the seventh ground Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddhas are outshone by the means of Bodhisattva intelligence. That means when the Bodhisattva reached to the first bhumi, since the first bhumi, the Bodhisattva can outshone or outshine Pratyeka Buddha and Sarvaka based on the merit, not by intelligence. From the seven bhumi, since seven bhumi, the Bodhisattva can outshone the Pratyeka and Sarvaka Buddha by intelligence. That means there's two different ways to outshone, mean surpasses. So this is very important. Please remember, since Bodhisattva reached to first bhumi, he or she can outshone Pratyeka and Sarvaka Buddha by merit, not by intelligence. Since seven bhumi, then the Bodhisattva can outshone, surpass the Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddha by intelligence. So it has a very important meaning. Right? Outshone means surpass. Now there's a kind of question: how on this ground Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddhas are outshone by the means of Bodhisattva lineage? The means of Bodhisattva lineage. Then there's a quotation from one of the sutras. So we already, read last time. Child of the lineage. It is like this. Now, must remember, Bodhisattva is look like the son of the king. The baby son of the king. Then Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddhas are look like the minister of the king. You remember the analogy: king and the son of the king and the ministers. But the king has a just newborn baby. The newborn baby outshone for all the ministers, not by intelligence, by the kind of the lineage. When the son, fully matured, have all the knowledge, then the king of the sun can outshone all the ministers. Minister can be outshone by intelligence, outshone by the kind of the lineage. This is an analogy. That means Bodhisattva, it look like the son of the king. Sarvaka Buddha and Pratyeka Buddhas are look like all the ministers. The son of the king, born not longer ago, bears the name of the royalty, and because of the greatness of his family lineage, he outshines the entire assembly of the sinner and the chief minister at court. Likewise, the Bodhisattva on the beginner stage, who has generated a beginning mind not so long ago, has been born into the lineage of the surgeon of Dharma, the Tathagata. Because of his awakening mind and compassion, he outshined the Sarvaka and Patika Buddha, who have practiced the pure conducts over a long time. This is the, you can say, analogy and the actual meaning. Then the second paragraph, another analogy. The child of the lineage, it is like this: the newborn offsprings of the Garuda. You can say Garuda, you can say eagle. The king of the birds has qualities: strength of the wing, totally clarity of vision, and so on. They do not exist in mutual bird of the all other birds. There's a analogy. Therefore, like offspring of the Garuda is very small, but compared with other birds, is a totally distinct, totally different. Those are the analogy. Now we go actual, the meaning, how the since 7 Bhumi, the Bodhisattva can outshone Sarvaka and Patika Buddha by intelligence. Now it's very important. I said very important, right? At the beginning, there's a quotation. Now we go the actual meaning here. How on the seventh ground, Sarvaka and Patika Buddhas are outshone by the means of the Bodhisattva's intelligence. Is the question, right? How on the 7th ground, Sarvaka and Patika Buddhas are outshone by means of the Bodhisattva's intelligence. Then the 7th Bhumi name is the gone afar. He will also surpass them by his intelligence. In the explanation of what is mean, in the explanation of what is mean by the power of intelligence. What does mean, the power of intelligence? What does mean the power of intelligence? There's a phrase from the commentary, or there's a phrase from the 10 Ground Sutras. Phrase, there's a short, kind of line from the 10 Bhumi Sutras. He abide with the greatness of his knowledge of the relevant object. This is the greatness of the Bodhisattva, knowing his relevant object of cessation, which is the perfect end point. The perfect end point. So this is again, when you read the English, you think for you seems to be, what does mean perfect end point? In Tibetan words, we say yangta. Yangta means perfect. Point mean ending point. Ending point. Therefore, it's come, perfect end point. Tibetan called Yangta Tha. Yangta mean perfect. Point mean Tha, mean kind of end. Yangta Tha. On this point, so there's a huge kind of question. Why since first Bhumi, they cannot outshine Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddha by intelligence, still can outshine or shine by merit. Why? That means if you compare the merit which is accumulated by Bodhisattva and accumulated by Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddha, you really cannot compare, because Bodhisattva accumulated much greater merit. Therefore, compared with merit, the Bodhisattva accumulate much greater merit than the Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddha. If you compare the intelligent, the Bodhisattva who abide the first Bhumi, compared with the Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddha, you cannot see the intelligence is much better. They have a equal kind of intelligence. Intelligence here referred to the wisdom, realize emptiness. That means the Bodhisattva who abide on the first ground, he or she directly perceive emptiness. He or she has the intelligence, has the wisdom, realize emptiness directly. Same way, Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddha also perceive emptiness directly. They have an equal intelligence. They have an equal wisdom, realizing emptiness. Therefore, you cannot see, differences much based on the intelligence. Until first to all the way to 7. Clear? 7. When the Bodhisattva reached to 7 Bhumi, then the intelligence is become much, greater, much deeper. Cannot compare the intelligence possessed by Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddha. This one you must remember. Yeah, first Bhumi can, outshine, surpass by merit, not by intelligence. From the 7 Bhumi, they can surpass by intelligence. Now, we need to know why. Why? Then there's 3 different positions. On this point, the first position, some assert that although there's no difference between gnosis of those on the 6th ground and below, and that of the 7 with respect to their nature. Therefore, when you look at the wisdom, which is possessed by the first Bhumi, first Buddhist Bhumi, Bodhisattva, second, all the way to 6, 7, they said that you cannot see much difference. So I will read one more. Some assert that although here is no difference between gnosis of those on the 6th ground and below, and that of the 7 with respect to their nature. The former, that means the wisdom is no much differences between the 6th or below the 6th Bhumi and the 7th Bhumi. They say the wisdom, you cannot see the intelligence, the wisdom is difference. Then why the 6th Bhumi, cannot shun the Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha, then why the 7, Bhumi, Bodhisattva reach to a 7 Bhumi, why he or she can outshine Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha? Why? That answer is here according to the first, one of the master. I will read one more, please you listen. Some assert that although there is no difference between the gnosis of those on the 6th ground and below, and that of the 7 with respect to their natures, right? The wisdom nature, no differences. First Bhumi, second Bhumi, 7, all the way to 7, there's no difference. But the 7 can outshine Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha. Below 6, they cannot. Why? Now here, see here. The former mean below the 6, include the 6, first to 6. The former do not possess the capacity to eliminate the obscuration to knowledge, while gnosis of the 7th ground has the capacity. This is the assert, making differences between outshine and not outshine through intelligence. Make sure, repeat again. The Bodhisattva who reach to the first Bhumi, he or she can outshine or surpass Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha by merit, not by intelligence. Also, Bodhisattva who reach to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, they can only outshine, surpass Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha by merit, not by intelligence. Then, since when they reach to the 7th Bhumi, then he or she can outshine Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha by intelligence. Right? Intelligence. Then why? Why the Bodhisattva who reach to the 7th Bhumi, he or she can outshine Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha by intelligence? Why? There some master says the intelligence which is possessed by the 1st Bhumi, 2nd Bhumi, 3rd, 4th, 5th, all the way 7, the intelligence, the wisdom is same. Still, the Bodhisattva who reached to 7 Bhumi, he can outshine Sarvaka and Pratika Buddha because here, the former do not possess the capacity to eliminate the obscuration to knowledge. That means from 1st Bhumi to all the way to 6th Bhumi, they don't possess, they don't have the capacity, ability to eliminate the obscuration of the knowledge. Remember, there's a 2 kinds of obscuration. Obscuration of liberation, obscuration of omniscience. Right? So they said, until the 6th Bhumi, they don't possess capacity or ability to eliminate the obscuration of knowledge. Right? Knowledge. While gnosis of the 7th ground has the capacity, that means the Bodhisattva who reach to the 7th Bhumi, the wisdom has the capacity to eliminate the obscuration of knowledge. Then continuously make the difference between the outshine and not outshine through the intelligence. Right? That means The wisdom is same from first Bhumi to all the way to 7 Bhumi. Until 6 Bhumi, they don't possess the capacity to eliminate the operation of knowledge. The 7 Bhumi has possess the capacity or ability to eliminate the operation of the knowledge. Therefore, until 7 Bhumi, they cannot surpass the Pratika and Sarva Pratika Buddha. 7 Bhumi they can. This is the difference. Clear? Okay. Number one, this is one of the position from one of the masters. Now there's a second position. Some maintained the difference is mean below the 7 and the 7. One can outshine, one cannot. The difference is here. Some maintain that this difference is because from the 7 ground, the Bodhisattva is able to enter into the meditative concentration through the process of the lapping over, right? One more spiritual lesson. Some maintains that this difference is because from the 7 ground, the Bodhisattva is from the 7 ground, the Bodhisattva is able to enter into meditative concentration through process of the lapping over. Mean here, look at my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say 5 step. 1 step, second, 1 step, 2, 3, 4, 5 step. Right? So if you are physically not so tanned, you are physically, you don't have a very flexible, very perfect tan body, you cannot jump from here to here very high. Therefore, you jump from here to here, then here to here, here to here, then here to here. Right? Step by step. If you are very flexible, if you have a very flexible body, if you are very tan well, then you can jump from here to here. You just escape this one, escape, jump here to here, here to here. Then you can just leave this one like this. Jump. Otherwise, someone jump from here. This means overlap. Process of lapping over. Leave one, jump next. Leave one, next one. That means there's a I think very particular meditation to meditate step by step for 1 step. Second, someone can jump next to. This is the reason somebody said like that. Some maintain that this difference is because from the 7 ground, the Bodhisattva is able to enter into meditative concentration through a process of lapping over. This one. Second, the third position here, still other claim that the Bodhisattva outshone Sarvaka and Pratika Buddhas through his intelligence because the gnosis of the 7 ground is manifestly directed towards the irreversible at ground, irreversible to the at ground. The third position, the person said, from 7 to, they definitely go all the way to, cannot reverse, cannot go back. Irreversible at ground. That means 7 to 8. 6 still not sure. This is the third position. There are three position. There's a three kind of answer why 7 can outshine by intelligence. Why not below the 7 they cannot outshine by intelligence? There are three different answer or three different points. All the points are incorrect. So Chandrakirti very much focus on this this point. Very much he focus explaining this point. First Bhumi can surpasses by merit, but not intelligence. Since 7 can surpass by intelligence. There's a very important reason. Because according to Pasangika, in order to free from samsara, in order to achieve liberation, everybody must realize emptiness. Realizing selfness only cannot achieve liberation. Therefore, they are trying to prove achieving liberation must realize emptiness. Achieving Buddhahood must realize emptiness. Without emptiness, you cannot achieve liberation, neither Buddhahood nor liberation. They want to prove we have to realize emptiness. Without realizing emptiness, we cannot achieve anything. This is the point they want to explain, right? Then, among the 3 points, we study the first point. Also, we have to know this one. Of this, the first position is incorrect. Incorrect. What is the first position? Although there are no differences between the gnosis of those on the 6th ground and below, and that of the 7 with respect to the natures, the former do not possess the capacity to eliminate the occurations to knowledge, while the gnosis of the 7th ground has the capacity. So this is the point, like position. Lama Tsongkhapa said, the first position is incorrect. Incorrect. So we study a little bit because it's very important. For in this tradition, mean the Pasangika tradition or Nagarjuna tradition, Chandrakirti tradition, mainly according to Pasangika tradition. For in this tradition, it is maintained that all intents of grasping at self-existence of the person are form of afflicted ignorance. And to eliminate this gnosis, so it cannot refer, it sits. That means, according to Pasangika, all the grasping into person, grasping into the phenomena, all the ignorance are afflictive emotion, right? Afflict emotion. The rest of the others go, no, ignorance is not the afflictive emotion. The Arya, Arhat, the Hinayana Arhat, they cannot really eliminate the innate grasping. But according to Pasangika, all the grasping are affliction. Once more, for in this tradition, it is maintained that all instance of the grasping as self-existent of the person are forms of affliction or forms of afflicted ignorance. And to eliminate this ignorance, so that is, it is cannot refer, it sits, right? Operation to knowledge. Operation to knowledge is the ignorance. Ignorance is afflicted ignorance. Ignorance. That means all the ignorance are, afflictive emotion. Therefore, all the Hinayan Arya must eliminate all the grasping. Not only that, so according to Pasangika, the operation to knowledge cannot possess the grasping. The graspings are not operation to the knowledge. It is cannot refer to it sits, must be exhaust as well. That means ignorance is also afflicted operation, afflicted ignorance. The sits of the ignorance also afflicted operation. Right? Is not the operation to the knowledge. Now you can see rest of the other school, ignorance has two kinds of ignorance, innate and not innate. You can say I simply use the not innate ignorance. The innate ignorance cannot eliminate it by the Hinayan Arya. But according to Pasangika, the innate ignorance also must be eliminated by the Hinayan Arhat. As well, the sits also must be eliminated by the Arhat, Hinayan Arhat. It is sits must be exhausted as well. Furthermore, since such as elimination of affliction is common with the true Arhats as well, eliminating the sits of grasping a true existent dhanos constitute eliminates to the operation of the knowledge. As for the operation that are in the form of the residual imprints, now you can see the sits and imprint, their differentiate. Sits and imprint, differentiate according to Pasangika. The rest of the other school is the same. The sits of the ignorance, the imprints of the ignorance is same meaning. According to Pasangika, first, all the ignorance are afflictive emotion. They are affliction. They are affliction. Also, the sits of the ignorance also must eliminated by the true Arhat. The hearer and solitary realizer Arhat. So, since today you must remember, according to Pasangika, doesn't matter innate or not innate ignorance, all the ignorance are afflictive emotion. Clear? Emotion. Therefore, all the Hinayan Arhat must eliminate it, the all kinds of ignorance. Not only ignorance, they also eliminated the sits of all the ignorance. They eliminate all ignorance, also they eliminated the sits of all the ignorance, not the imprints, right? According to Pasangika. So this is a big, huge differences between Pasangika and rest of the school. First, you remember this point. Right? Then, the second and third point is not so important. We just, leave it. Just, I don't want you have a lot of confusion. Then certainly, also there's one question on the books in the commentary. Also, you may thinking, actually right now we are studying the first Bhumi. Then certainly, how come we are talking about 7 Bhumi? What's the connection? What's the connection? First Bhumi, within the first Bhumi we are talking. We are studying, suddenly jump into 7 Bhumi, right? What's the link? Then the answer is here. Chandrakirti, composed this text that the concept of the 10 Bhumi is come from the 10 Bhumi Sutras. 10 Bhumi Sutras. In the 10 Bhumi Sutras, remember the son of the king just born outshone all the minister by carry the royalty, not by the intelligence, right? When the son grow up, possess all the knowledge, then the son of the king can outshine all the minister by intelligence, right? This is the 10 Bhumi Sutras. So according to Sutra, also mentioned, first Bhumi can outshine by merit, 7 Bhumi outshine by intelligence. Is best answer based on the Sutra. And also another answer here, first Bhumi, outshine by merit, not by intelligence. Then when the Bodhisattva can outshine Sarvaka and particular Buddha by intelligence, then say from the 7, right? Therefore you can see first Bhumi, but suddenly it goes in the 7 Bhumi to explain the point.
So the first question is, can Geshe-la please explain with some example how a person in first Bhumi with less wisdom can attain more merits than Sravakas?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Can Geshe-la please explain with some example how a person in first Bhumi with less wisdom can attain more merits than Sravakas?
Oh yeah. So first, I think you need to, whoever asked the question, thank you so much for asking the question. First, I think we must remember, according to Pasangika, the Mahayana Sutra or Hinayan Sutra, all the teaching actually presented, about emptiness. When the Buddha Shakyamuni taught emptiness for the Hinayan disciple, those disciple, he taught emptiness with a simple logic, not very extensive way. Second time, when he really explained the emptiness in the Vulture Peak, he explained or taught the emptiness very extensively, lot of logics, lot of reasoning. Is many times there's a lot of repetition to explain the emptiness with a lot of logics. Therefore, when they engage into the practice for accumulating merit, the Bodhisattva can accumulate greater merit than the Charvaka and Partika, because the intelligence, the wisdom is more profound, because the knowledge gained with a lot of logics and lot of reasonings. For example, there are two kind of what you call in the court. You have two persons who fight with the behalf of the people. What do you call this one? Lawyer. For example, there are two lawyers. Both of them they know the point. One has a lot of reasonings behind the point. Other doesn't have. When they argue in front of the court, in front of the judge, someone can prove with a lot of logic and reasoning. Other also can prove, but not that much logic and reasoning. Therefore, you can see the knowledge is different. Therefore, when they engage into accumulating merit, the Bodhisattva can accumulate merit much greater. For example, Bodhisattva, when they hear, the phrase, give me, when they hear the phrase which is say, give me something, the Bodhisattva feels so joy. They can give everything for the people who need it. Also, they are ready to give their life for flesh and blood and bone because of great compassion. And also remember the analogy, one parent has only one child, and both parents very much like the child. One day the child fall into, one of the kind of pit, fall somewhere. There's a lot of dangers. The mother really wished to save the child, and the mother really cannot jump in the pit because she doesn't have the capacity to swim. The father can jump and save the child because the father has the capacity or intelligence to swim. Therefore, when they give, it's a different. And the motivation, right? When we say Maha or Hina, it is not Hinayana mean we really look down them. Maha mean the motivation is greater. Hinayan, all the practice will do, practice only benefit themselves. Then Bodhisattva, all the practices do only benefit for others. Therefore, motivation is greater. When they engage into the path, the Bodhisattva engage into path with the 6 perfections. Therefore, the path is greater. When they achieve the result, Hinayana can achieve only the liberation, only liberate from the suffering and the cause of suffering grossly, not the subtle level. The Bodhisattva, when they achieve the result, they can eliminate, completely the cause of suffering and suffering. Therefore, yes, Bodhisattva can accumulate much greater merit than the Hira and Partika Buddha. Therefore, they can surpasses by merit, not the intelligence from the first Bhumi all the way to 6. Clear? Okay, next question.
Okay, Geshe-la. the second questions.
Hmm?
Can Geshe-la please explain the difference between number 1, the seed of ignorance, number 2, imprint, and number 3, innate afflictions? What is the difference between the seed of ignorance, the imprint, and the innate afflictions? Thank you, Geshe-la.
If you read the 6th chapter, it says very clearly, even though the animal, has the innate ignorance. Innate ignorance, everybody, since we were born, we possess the innate ignorance. Since we born, we didn't possess like a taking refuge, believe in karma, believe in next life, and it's come later, influenced by, taught by that religion, it's come later. That means some innate ignorance possess us since we were born. Nobody, is not influenced by others. We were born with the innate ignorance. For example, when you look at the things around you, we never think that things around us only established by, name and thoughts. We thought everything exists established by their own. Doesn't mean we have the innate ignorance. Also, when we think about me, right, me and myself, I, for us, we feel the I exists within me as an independent I. Right? Independent I. But we never think the I is not independently exists without having rely on our 5 aggregates. We never think. For example, when you saw somebody's head, then we say, oh, I saw you because I saw your head. Therefore, we say, I saw you. I touch you. I meet you. Right? I become fat. I become thin. I lost. I put weight. That means eyes within us is kind of sometimes it look like very independent. Sometimes it depends on our 5 aggregates. This kind of concept we have since we were born. Then there's second, ignorance, which is not innate. It's influenced by other tradition, like the non-Buddhist tradition, particularly according to the Tibetan tradition, we say is influenced by Hindu tradition. So in the Hindu tradition, in the Hindu teaching, they teach you, oh, you have a Atma. We are Buddhists, we don't believe Atma, we believe Anatma, or no self. Hindu religion, they teach you, yeah, you have a Atma. The Atma is permanent. The Atma is independent. The Atma is singleness. Through this kind of religion, slowly you have this kind of concept in your mind. This is we call ignorance, but it's not innate. It's influenced by tradition, influenced by culture or religion. Still we say ignorance, because it's ignorance about the self. Clear? Innate and non-innate. The second, you are asking what is the difference between the seeds and the imprints of the ignorance. Seeds of the ignorance, imprints of the ignorance. Generally, worldly concept, when we say seeds, the thing has a potential to grow something. The rice seeds, mango tree, mango seeds, apple seeds, mean there's a thing, it has a potential to grow things. This means seeds of the ignorance mean the potential to arouse ignorance is the seeds. Inference means it's kind of became obstacle when you engage into practice. This obstacle you have is due to inference of the ignorance. Right? That means it's therefore according to Pasangika, seeds mean have the potential to arouse ignorance. Inference means you got the obstacle to engage into very specific path. This obstacle, we say it is inference of the ignorance. For example, until we become Buddha, we cannot realize emptiness, bodhicitta, and the wisdom. One mind, just one single mind, cannot realize the true truths. Clear? One single mind cannot realize true truth simultaneously. When you realize emptiness, you are realizing only emptiness, not the conventional truth. When you realize the conventional truth, you are realizing only conventional truth, not the ultimate truth. One man cannot realize the true truth simultaneously. You have the obstacle to realize true truth by one mind before we become Buddha. This obstacle we have, this is the inference of the ignorance. Clear? Okay. This answer for the second question. Is there any more question?
Thank you, Geshe-la. Yes, there is the third question. So the third question says something like this. In non-Buddhist, for us, in Christianity, saying that the soul is permanent because unlike the seed will change into sprout, so that is impermanent. The soul will never change to something that is other than the soul. Therefore, the soul is permanent. It seems like Buddhists misunderstood what we Christians say about permanent self. Can Geshe-la comment on this?
Yes, also I think there must be big differences, the meaning between Buddhist or non-Buddhist about the meaning of impermanence and permanent. Permanent, for example, like being, sentient beings. So we are being sentient beings for millions of years. So this means the beings are not the permanent. Also, soul, according to Christian tradition, according to Hindu has a very particular definition about the soul. According to Christian tradition, so far I haven't seen the clear definition of the soul. Soul is a consciousness or is a separate from consciousness. Is soul is a being or human being? Human being soul is human being, or human being soul is different from the human. So first we need to know the definition of the soul according to the Christian tradition. Yes, the soul is, if the soul exists, the soul is always soul. Soul cannot become non-soul. Being never become non-being. Non-being never become a being. It doesn't mean being are permanent. For example, according to Buddhist tradition, we say, oh, now I am 50 plus year old. We say old. So that means we know human beings are changing year by year, month by month, day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second, millisecond. So we are changing momentarily, the human being or being, all the rest of the conditioned phenomena. Then the soul also, in each changing momentarily, each changing doesn't mean it become, soul become non-soul. Human being become non-human being. No, human being is always human being until become a Buddha, still becomes a human being. Therefore, the definition of impermanence according to Buddhist tradition means things changing momentarily. It's changing momentarily because of its own causes, condition. There's nobody behind you who is changing things. Things changing by their own causes and condition. For example, when we build a concrete house, a concrete house cannot exist more than 200. That means the house, since build the house, since we put the foundation, the house already start to change. The changing already began. Yeah, therefore, first, so far I don't know exact the definition of the soul. Is a consciousness or is separate from consciousness? Is a human being, is a being, human being consciousness is a human being, is separate from human. Second, the meaning of impermanence, permanence, differences between Buddhists and non-Buddhists. According to Buddhist tradition, impermanence means changing momentarily by their own causes and condition. There's nobody behind, it is changing. Yes. Who asked the question? Can you tell us what's the definition of the soul?
Ishira, according to this person, there is no definition in Bible.
Yeah. Therefore, because it's a kind of extra things, and I was in Chicago for more than 3 months. So every week, we have a kind of, I goes to see one of the Christian father. So we discuss about, soul, consciousness of God and creator and creations. We discuss with many kind of, many topics. When he says something, he just follow what his teacher said. The teacher just follow what other teacher said. They don't have the, kind of a solid, the systematic way to study, the Christian tradition. Also, Islam is same thing. They just believe in Allah. They do, 5-time prostration to the Allah. Certain day they do the what you call the fasting practice, but they really don't have, the practice go step by step. Yeah, Hindu, does. Many Hindu tradition, they have, so many different kinds of practice to go step by step, like meditation, so and so. Okay, any question?
The questions from the chat.
Okay, please.
There is no question from the chat.
Okay, no question.
Inshallah.
Okay, for the next class, we will study, how Chandrakirti prove, how he did prove the Hinayan practitioners, Sarvaka and Pratyeka Buddha must realize emptiness according to Sutra. According to Buddha's teaching. Second, we're going to study how Chandrakirti prove all the Arhat, all the Arya, Hinayan or Mahayan, all the Arya must realize emptiness according to the Shanti Deva. Then third, important, so we need to learn how Shanti Deva prove Hinayan Arya must realize emptiness. So if you have the commentary book, You can read furthermore. So at the end, so I will just talk a little bit in our daily practice, because I'm always, I really always make sure all of you just attend, class from me, from other master. First, it's a very good, you are spending your time for Dharma. You try to learn the Dharma. You try to really seriously try to understand the Dharma, which is very, very good. I very much appreciate it. The second important, I said 100 times, more than 100. Studying is very important. The second important is important to practice the Dharma. Yes, still, everybody try to practice Dharma as much as we can, but we cannot see, big changes. We cannot feel, big progress in our Dharma practice, because we practice in the morning, we totally, forget afternoon, evening. Sometimes we do practice in the afternoon, not morning. We don't have the continuum. We don't have the continuous, Dharma practice. For example, you make a fire, you hit the water becomes hot. Then you stop to adding the wood, or you stop to adding the gas and oil. Then slowly the fire become distinguished. Then slowly the water become cold again. Therefore, our practice is like that. When you get very angry, yes, you try to apply patience. You try to apply loving kindness, great compassion. You calm your mind. You control your anger. When your anger is fully disappear, then since we again stop practicing loving compassion. So therefore, based on study, please you practice your Dharma as much as you can and continuously. But the progress, the good result of our daily practice, you cannot see within like 1 or 2 years. If you practice continuously, for almost 24 hours, within 3 years, you can see the result by yourself. Or other people can notice, you become very more content person, very more calm person, more compassionate person. That means this is the result. Therefore, please practice as much as you can and continuously practice and seriously practice. So how we begin our daily practice? Again, I repeat, it's kind of repetition again. Some of you feel, it's again, right, boring. But if you don't, I remind you again, then you cannot have any kind of good progress. At the beginning, every day morning, when you woke up, first, you very much, rejoice yourself. Feel very happy yourself. Feel I'm very lucky, because millions of people, billions of people who already passed away, within the 24 hours, many people pass away in Asia, in Europe, in America, in Africa, which we know. Beyond there are so many other kind of, walls. So still I'm alive. I'm so lucky. Still I'm alive. You rejoice yourself. Second, you must reflect, yes, I'm very lucky, I'm still alive. But I never know. I can see next day. I'm not sure I can see next day, because uncertainty of the life. Everything is very uncertainty, impermanence, particularly this day, due to the COVID, life become very uncertain. And then you just meditate on impermanence, remember the death. Do, meditate on impermanence and death, your own death. You don't, need to reflect other people dying, death. After you meditating on death for maybe 5-10 minutes, then after I died, after left this world where I go, then you reflect on the karma, positive and negative karma. The negative karma brings negative result. The positive karma brings positive result. I don't want any negativities. I want only positivities. Therefore, since today, I'll do only good things. I'll do only good things. I never going to do any bad things. Verbally, mentally, physically. That means you just have to engage into only positive actions. And remember the negative actions that you recite some kind of mantra, manipeme, bhajasato, whatever, purify negative karma. Then third step, then you reflect on the samsara, the nature of the samsara, the cause of the samsara, ignorance, attachment, desire. Then you check this morning which afflictive emotion is more stronger. Someday in the morning when you woke up, suddenly you feel you are very angry. Someday you have very strong attachment. Someday you have a strong desire. Someday you have a strong ego, jealousy, so many thoughts we have. First you need to analyze which is stronger. According to that particular negative thoughts, you apply the particular antidote and reduce. Right? That means you are actually slowly entering into the meditation stage based on one of the antidotes. Then you must think, oh, doesn't matter how much I practice the positive action, I'm still in samsara. I don't want to be in samsara. I don't want to reborn again in samsara. I want to free from samsara. Then what is the cause of samsara? Is ignorance. How I can eliminate ignorance? Wisdom, realize emptiness. Right? That means remember at the 7th point, remember all phenomena like dream. Then meditate on emptiness of all phenomena for a while. Then emptiness of the mind, emptiness of the object, subject. Finally, just meditate on emptiness using very simple few logics. Impermanence, emptiness. Then, if I practice only emptiness, I cannot be Buddha. I want to be Buddha because I want to benefit all sentient beings. All sentient beings are on me. All sentient beings who are not around me, still all sentient beings are my dear mother. This is the first time I realize all sentient beings are my dear. Therefore, I want to benefit all sentient beings. Then I want to be Buddha. Then remember the two methods how to generate bodhicitta. The simple, important one, exchanging self and other. That's when first you need to practice equalization, equalize you and all sentient being equal. Then exchange self and other. Before you exchange, you need to meditate on or reflect on the negative consequences of self-cherishing. The positive, all the good qualities arise from other cherishing. Reflect on the benefit of self-other cherishing and disadvantage of the self-cherishing. Then you meditate on this two. Then finally you think, oh, I want to exchange the cherishing. Until now, I cherish only myself. Since today I want to cherish only others. I ignore my own cherishing, my own benefit. Then, generate bodhicitta. Still, if you have still time, then slowly you can reflect on the 6 perfections. Therefore, I said, last few times, until now, we look like the shepherd, shipkeeper, treasure. We count a lot of money in bank. If you are like a treasure, if you are cash with cashier, you count billions of dollars. And you go home, you don't have money. Until now, we are cashier in the bank. Until now, we are shipkeeper who are looking after many ships. When you go back home, we don't have any ship. We should not be like that. We not just only talk. We must practice, try to have the path in our minds. Okay, so today we can stop our class here. So, and every day, if you have free time, please chant, the first chapter quite often to remember the words and try to understand the meaning and try to practice the, all the practices. Okay, so thank you so much for attending the class. I really hope you can get little benefit from this class from me. The most important, I really urging all of you to practice. At the end, you have to be like, right? Remember the measure of training your minds. The world is boiled with the what you call adversary. All the adversary transform into path to enlightenment. Finally, you have to train yourself, train your mind. All human beings are on you. The rest of the human being became enemy with you. Still, you learn how to remain very peaceful and very calm, without losing any little sense of compassion, love towards them. You can say, okay, all human beings become my enemy. Still, they are my dear one. And one day, you became nothing. You totally become beggar, no food, no clothes, nothing. Still, you need to learn how to remain very peacefully, very calm, without losing any sense of kind of anger, sense of compassion, not let arising any kind of anger and hatred. Or one day, suddenly you become king of the world. Still, you must turn your mind how to remind. Remember, you view your lowest, you yourself view lowest. Even you become king of the world, you need to learn how to remain calm, no attachment, no ego, no desire. Right? Therefore, please, train your mind with the Dharma. We never know, what will happen next 2 to 3, 10, 20 years. The world becomes very scary. Therefore, practice Dharma as much as you can. Thank you so much. Attend the class. At the end, we do dedication. Through our Dharma class, we have accumulated a great amount of merits, because at the beginning, we chant the first chapter with the pure motivation. During the class time, we try to understand the Dharma, the meaning as much as you can. At the end, we have a very strong motivation to practice the Dharma as much as you can. Therefore, we have accumulated great amount of merit from this class. All the merit we have accumulated is, first we dedicate for becoming Buddha ourselves to benefit all sentient beings. Second, we dedicate the merit for able to generate the conventional bodhicitta, to able to achieve the ultimate bodhicitta, true bodhicittas. At the end, we dedicate the merit for world peace, peace for all countries, peace for all sentient beings. Jamba Bave Chitara Kemba Tangundo Zambo Deyan Dejin. Deda Gunje Jesu Da Lojen Gewa Deda Damje Rabu. Chazi Wang Damje Zobe Janju Chemboro. Dusun Shebe Gewa Damje Ye Mwa Gangla Chodu Ngaba. Dagi Gewe Zawan Digun Yang Zambo Juje Radu Mwar Ye. Thank you so much. Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la, for the wonderful teaching. Let us quickly seal today's merits with a stanza from the Arya ones. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remains, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you. Rejoice.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Enjoy study.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you. Bye. See you tomorrow. See you, Perry.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow.